Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farm, the podcast. I'm your host, Jace Young, and today's topic and discussion is going to be the unknown dangers lurking beneath the surface. So the reason I'm bringing this up today is because my wife and I just got back from vacation. We went to Hawaii for our 10-year anniversary. It's just crazy thinking back at how fast 10 years went. And I know some of you guys listening to this podcast right now, you're probably on year 20 or year 30, and you're thinking that's absolutely nuts, and 10 years was nothing. So, but still, it's just kind of crazy for us. Last year, I did something really special for Rachel. At least I tried to. Our first 10 years of marriage, guys, was absolute chaos, right? We had 4 kids in a 10-year time frame, and I left the banking industry, jumped into entrepreneurism, and with no money in our bank accounts or anything like that. So we just went through a lot from 2013 to 2023. And anyway, so we just got back from that vacation. It was great to get away for a few days, and I have the same problem that every other business owner does, and that is not having the ability to turn this off up here. Especially when you go to Hawaii, it's 4 hours behind Central Time. So 6 a.m. here is 2 a.m. there, and I was up at 1 or 2 a.m. there every day and was working for 5 or 6 hours before the sun came up. But that's just what I like to do. It's peaceful and quiet for me in the mornings and things like that. So anyways, the whole topic of today's discussion, guys, I'm talking about the unseen dangers that are lurking beneath the surface. It comes up to a story and an experience that my wife and I had going on our trip. So on day 2 of our vacation there, we went out on a boat, and we were going to go around to the north side of the island. So we stayed on Kauai, which is the furthest north island out of all the Hawaiian islands. It's where they filmed Jurassic Park and things like that. So we were going to take a boat and go around to the north side of the island and look at some of those video shots and stuff they had when the helicopter was flying in, and it's just crazy, amazing landscape over there. Just things that just kind of blow your mind that God created this. And anyways, my wife would honestly be killing me right now if she knew that I was talking about this, but it's such a powerful story with such a good lesson. And when we're in just tough business situations or just life situations, really. But anyway, so the trip was going to be about 5.5 hours, and my wife ended up getting seasick about an hour and a half in. And so all the guys on here, if you don't hear me on the next episode, or this is the last episode ever of Legacy Farm, the podcast, then my wife most likely buried me somewhere. But anyway, so we went through, and it was a 5 to 5.5 hour, boat ride, and it was rough out, right? So we were just on a small little air-up boat. It wasn't like super small, but it was enough where you felt everything, for sure. And I do fine with stuff like that. She, unfortunately, this time did not. Ended up getting sick in about an hour into the ride there. Now, there was 15, 20 other people on the boat there with us looking forward to this experience. So we were in a position where, my wife, she was just trapped. Like, it was going to be 4 to 4.5 hours of absolute misery for her. And fortunately, on the north side of the island, the waters were a little bit less rough, right? They were a little bit smoother there. But once we got back and we were heading back to the dock and everything, we had 30 miles of just absolute chaos and struggle and everything. Now, the reason I bring this up is because as we were going along that boat ride and everything, you don't really recognize how big the waves are in the ocean until you get out there, right? From land, it looks like, it's just a flat surface depending upon how far away you are and things like that. I'm not talking like being right on the beach. Obviously, you can see them then. But, if you go ziplining, for example, and you're overlooking the mountain and you see the water out there, it just looks pretty smooth and pretty calm, right? And you don't really understand what you're getting into until you get out on the water. And the reason this is relevant for business owners and farmers and ranchers and everybody here, when we have young kids coming back to the operation and we try to support them or help them, I'm not saying that's bad, but the thing is, though, is that we are putting them into a world that they do not fully understand. Now, why is this relevant? Because when we were on that boat, guys, again, you don't recognize how big the waves are until you get out there. And then I start hearing the captain essentially of the boat talking about the dangers in the waters and how different riptides happen and different waves can happen and different things can happen to where he could actually flip the boat really easily. He goes, a person out here that does not have the knowledge or the experience that I do doing this for 10 years could very easily flip this boat and they would die immediately. There would be no way to save them because of the rip currents or whatever they're called. And he just started wondering and stating off all these different things that are happening beneath the boat or beneath the surface, not to mention all the creatures down there, right? You got jaws and crap down there that could kill you, but you know what I'm talking about though, right? So when we're up there, to me, it's just a nice little joyride. But the thing is on the back end though, I don't really understand all the dangers that are lurking, not just beneath the water, but literally above the water too, right? And different things that could happen as far as the wind and the waves and just all this different stuff. It's way over my head. But essentially what I'm saying is if you put me in a position where I had to drive that boat, there's a high likelihood I'm going to die, or I'm at least going to fail, right? Because I just, again, the seas that we were in, the amount of winds that we were facing that day, especially on the trip back, it was chaos. And he had to be extremely careful for 30 miles going into these headwinds that were blowing 30, 40 miles an hour, and the waves are just huge out there. He had to be very, very careful. Now, the reason I bring this up is because when we have a son or daughter come back to the operation, which we talk about this in Legacy Farmer all the time, the question is, are you setting them up for failure, or are you setting them up for success? And this is what I'm talking about. We all want to help our kids, and I do too, right? And this is something I'm going to struggle with. I got 4 daughters, and as they get older, I guarantee you I'm going to struggle with, their little princess eyes asking me to buy them something or help them out or whatever that may be. But the thing is when they come back to the operation, if we step in and help them versus letting them start from ground zero, and we just throw them into the ocean, for example, like this guy just saying, hey, Jace, yeah, we're 100 yards out. You go ahead and take it from here. He is setting me up for failure. In his mind, he could be saying, hey, I'm giving you a great opportunity here. This is awesome. But the reality is I have not started from ground zero or point zero. I do not know all the dangers here, because in order to understand what could really happen in that situation, I have to personally experience those things starting from ground zero. And most kids today, going back to the family farm operation, mom and dad are stepping in and they're trying to help them get started. And typically what that involves is either handing them some cash, but a lot of people don't have cash just sitting around and extra cash to hand over today. It means them pledging assets and co-signing on an operating note or a real estate note or something for their kid coming back so they can help their kid get started. Now, why is this a problem? Guys, the dollar amounts that we're dealing with today, we have kids coming back to the operation where it is common practice for them to get $500 to $2 million in loans like that. The reason I bring this up and how is this relevant to the ocean? You do not understand what it is like to bear the responsibility and the weight of $2 million, let alone $500,000 in debt. You give a kid that kind of money coming back without him or her having to go through the steps and start from zero and have to earn the right to be able to borrow that amount of money. You are setting them up for failure. And I've seen it time and time again. We've had stories over and over again, just with our members inside of Legacy Farmer, of this happening inside of their families or happening to neighbors and things like that. So that's why I really wanted to get that message across to you guys today, because again, when I was out in the ocean, there was so much power going on out there. There was so much danger out there that I could not see. I did not know existed. I was just wandering around. I thought everything was perfect because I was in a safe environment, or pretty safe, because I had an experienced person that had decades of experience driving that boat. Your kids coming back, you're not driving that debt. You're not responsible for that debt. They are responsible for that debt. And we basically just threw them out into the ocean without taking them through the right levels of experiences to make them earn their way to borrowing that amount of money or building that size of business. Guys, all of you can agree with me. Going from zero to 500,000 in revenue is a heck of a lot different from going from 500 to 2 million, and a heck of a lot different going from 2 million to 10 million. There is a different level of business owner that is required for each stage. And if you try to skip the stages by co-signing on a note or just helping your kid, and again, it's a great story we can tell ourselves as parents is, hey, we're just helping our kid get started here. We should feel really great about this. We're kind of setting them up for failure though too, because there is no greater blessing and reward, I can tell you this from personal experience, from having to start at ground zero. And if I would have went back, if our family feed yard and everything was still operational and I would have went back there after college, guaranteed I would have been like everybody else. I would have got co-signed on a note. I would have started feeding cattle and buying cattle with my dad and my granddad and things like that. Not really understanding the risk that I was taking, not understanding the dangers that were lurking around me that I could not see. Right? So that's what I wanted to get across to you today, because a lot of you have kids coming back and you're throwing them out and giving them a boat way out in the ocean when they have no idea what they're jumping into. And ultimately, it could lead to them failing, right? Or, dying essentially and taking others down with them, right? So in the boat example, same thing on the farm operation though. When my granddad went under, he took every kid down with him, not to mention half the people in the community, because our operation was so sizable that he was just involved with a lot of different farmers and ranchers, and a lot of people got hurt when our operation went under. So we have to understand that. And again, you can't just throw somebody in to that level of business acumen or level of being a business owner. They have to earn their way through the ranks, and that's exactly what I've had to do. And guys, I'm not saying I have everything figured out. I don't. I'm constantly learning every single day. I'm constantly making mistakes every single day. I'm constantly having to look back at my actions and my experiences and how I responded to this or that and how I answered questions or whatever it may be. And I'm the most critical person of myself, because I know that I'm vulnerable. I know as I get to new levels in business that there's going to be like a right hook that comes out of somewhere that's going to put me on my ass. And I have to have the guts to say, okay, where did I screw up? What did I do wrong? And how can I make sure that this does not happen again? And in order to do that, you have to go through the experience of fails. But the thing is, though, is that we don't want to throw your kids out to a level 10 failure when they need to experience level 1 failure. You know what I mean? Because level 1, it's like, you kind of get pushed down, but I can jump right back up. And we start to build that tolerance and that resilience. And the most important thing we start to build is the awareness, right? The awareness of the dangers lurking beneath the surface that they cannot see. And if we try to put them in a place where they get to skip those stages of development as a business owner, we are setting them up for failure. So anyways, guys, this is 100% my opinion, obviously. But again, I go back to the biggest blessing in my life has been not having our family farm operation to run back to. Guarantee if I would have had that to run back to, I would not be on this podcast or on this camera speaking in front of you guys. We would not have brought over 300 family farm operations into Legacy Farmers since 2019. We would not have built out our software. I would not have hired my own team. I would not have built another company called Ag Accounting Services that I really don't have anything to do with because that team runs everything over there. I wouldn't have done all these things that really tested and pushed my comfort zone and made me have to go through those painful lessons. Yes, they were painful at the time. But ultimately, those lessons that made me aware, right, and developed me as a business owner. So do not rob that from your child is what I'm saying. And a lot of you right now listening to this, you're going to be in your 40s or 50s maybe, and you're the kid that came back and mom and dad co-signed on a note for you. And I don't know if you feel this way, but you could probably look at your timeline and say, okay, they either progressed me forward massively and I was just the one-hit wonder to where everything worked out, or they actually set you back and they just kicked the can down the road because you had to pay massive, massive painful lessons when you got to a certain point in business. Maybe it's when you're 30 or 35, to where all those years that they allowed you to skip, you had to go back and pay the price for them. God's always going to make us pay the price. I'm a true believer in that, and that karma is a real thing and that we have to earn our way there. And so that's where, again, I'm just reminded, don't focus on the end result, focus on the journey, because it's all about who you're becoming along this journey and what type of person God is leading you to be. So my friends, that concludes this episode. Hope you found it valuable. Hope it makes you think about some things inside of your business and your life, and we will catch you on the next episode.